Welcome to Offset. Larry and the Big Man. That's two-time Stanley Cup champion and Sportsnet hockey analyst Jay Caufield. I'm Larry Richert, host of the Big K Morning Show, weekday mornings 5:30 till 10. And I'm heading into my 25th year, guys. It's a long time.
Larry, phenomenal.
Dave Ricchini is with us. He's our Nostradamus of the numbers. First, we want to thank One Team Media and Brian Hess. Mark Coddington is producing this episode, and thanks to Odyssey Pittsburgh with 5 radio stations, including KDK and Michael Spatchapoli.
Also, Dave Rourke, the Rourke Automotive Group. Again, with it, you have the Rourke Advantage, which is lifetime state inspections, lifetime oil changes, engine warranty. Dave, they do such a great job over at Rourke. We really appreciate you being a part of the podcast. And also, Tom Grosh and everyone at Henderson Brothers, also another title sponsor of ours. So thank you very much.
Yeah, Henderson Brothers do a great job. You can reach out, hendersonbrothers.com. All right, gentlemen, we got a lot to cover. Preview, though, after a successful Monday night. By the way, a couple of notes from Monday night. Mike Tomlin's never lost at home on Monday Night Football. Yep. And the Dolphins have never won except for 2 times since 1966 when the temperature's been below 20 degrees. So a lot worked in the favor of the Steelers for that win on Monday night. But now you go on the road. You've got 3 games left. You're going to be in Cleveland the week after Sunday, and then they haven't announced the date, but you host the Ravens to close out the regular season. But you have the Detroit Lions, who have had great success the last couple of years, and for many, they were odds-on favorites to maybe get to the Super Bowl, but they're having some struggles. So where do we start?
Yeah, they've had a lot of injuries, especially in the secondary, and they are going to be a desperate team on Sunday. The loss of the Rams last week, now they're on the outside looking into playoffs, basically have to win out and hope that Green Bay drops 2 of 3, because Green Bay had that tied at Dallas, like 75-75 early on in the season. So they basically have to win out. They have the Steelers, then at the Vikings, at the Bears. Green Bay is at the Bears, home against the Ravens, at the Vikings. So it's possible, but their backs are against the wall. And you saw it last week against the Rams. The offense is still explosive with, Jahmyr Gibbs. The Rams held him in check, but he's a guy that can break one for an 80-yard touchdown at any point. Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of the toughest receivers. He's got some Hines Ward vibes as far as his toughness. He's a guy that left a game with a pretty bad ankle injury the one week and came back the next week and played like it never even happened. They thought he was going to miss multiple weeks. So he's a guy that the Steelers are going to have to contend with. But on the defensive side, Jay, the secondaries have just been ravaged with injuries, and the Rams had their way both in the running game and in the passing game.
And the Rams are really good. And I'm going to go back. That was a close game, closer than how it ended up. I think when Detroit saw Parsons go down, as far as Green Bay's concerned, their eyes just lit up. I mean, it's like literally Green Bay's going to be a different team. They might not get by the Bears. That's going to be wide open. I think, to Dave's point, they're going to be a desperate team. They're going to be a hungry team. And I made this point in the previous show. Now you're going to see a team come in with a running game with Gibbs and a passing game. Miami didn't have that. I don't care what their numbers were at the end. There was mop-up numbers at the end. But they don't have a quarterback in Miami that's feeling the game. This is going to be different going in there. I find this is going to be a really tough. That doesn't mean it's not going to be competitive. I think the offense, with what the Steelers are doing, how they're playing and how it's opened up, just adding receivers to it. DK Metcalf opening up, the running game, we talked about Gainwell and Warren and all that goes with that. But this is going to be a different animal they're going into when they go into Detroit. Different for the defensive side of the ball for Steelers.
And they had success against Baltimore with some deep passes, which they haven't had. And speaking of DK Metcalf, how about his touchdown against Miami? That's the kind of play you expect to see. And that's back-to-back good games for him. But they didn't have to throw deep that often against Miami. But I think they're going to have to and challenge the Detroit secondary.
Well, they still started to stretch. Excuse me. They still started to stretch the field in a way that the running game running game helped the passing game, right? Gainwell and Warren, when he was coming back from being not feeling well the night before, Gainwell, that part of the running game opened up the passing game. And I thought the play you talked about Metcalf, Aaron Rodgers even said he hasn't the best play he's seen since 2009 when Donald Driver with the Packers made some type of similar play. I mean, for me, I think that's if they haven't been performing the way they've been, and you talk about a beat up backfield for defensive backfield for the Lions, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to do his thing. But you got to keep that defensive line off of him, give him a pocket like he had against Miami. If not, it's going to be very difficult. But he's such a good short, and he relies on Gainwell, relies on Warren, and the tight ends getting Freiermuth involved. I think it's going to be really tough. I think it's going to be a great game, but I think this against the unit of the Steelers defensively, this is going to be a completely different test than what we just saw.
I think even the threat of the downfield passing game, you look at the snap counts last week against the Dolphins, MVS and Thielen both played over 50% of the snaps. Now, they didn't have a lot of catches, but how many times did you see those guys stretching the field with their routes, and then Rodgers would dump it off to Gainwell, dump it off in the flat to Darnell Washington, who with Metcalf is one of the two guys you don't want to have to tackle to go open field. So I think even having those guys on the field more and the threat for them to go deep, especially MVS and his big playability, is opening things up underneath.
The presence is huge. The presence are huge, and it's changed. As soon as they got here, it's changed. And I agree, the catches aren't there, but the snaps are there. And the difference, just the idea when you're in the defensive side of the ball, lining up against guys now that are going to be a threat for you, if it's freeing up Metcalf, I don't know. I'm sure it's great to see. It's great to see.
How many teams in the league, though, are utilizing tight ends like the Steelers? Think of it. And count Connor Hayward with the tush-push touchdown. Then you had Jonnu Smith with a rushing touchdown.
Yeah.
Then you had Darnell Washington and Pat Freiermuth, who can catch. They probably utilize tight ends better than any team in the league.
Them and the Rams. The Rams play a lot of 13 personnel.
The Rams, all their touchdowns they scored the other day was with that 13 personnel. 3 tight ends and one running back. But we're not hearing about them the same way we're hearing about Darnell Washington. And
I love when he gets the ball.
Yeah.
Just
so does the whole building.
If he gets into the secondary.
Did you hear what Aikman said?
Yeah, I did.
They
what did he say?
That they said Washington was listed at 264, but the Steelers coaches admitted he's well over 300 pounds, which is why we sent him 2 Yinzer dog packages.
Yes, he had a double dog down there. All right, that said, what about the numbers? What are you predicting, Jay?
Man,
how do you call this one?
Yeah.
Prolific offense in Detroit.
I'm going to go 31-24 Detroit.
Wow.
Yeah, I am.
I think it's tough because the Steelers don't have to win this game. They need to, if they lose this game, if they lose next week, as long as the Ravens lose one, then it all comes down to the final week. They don't have to win this game. The Lions do have to win the game. I'm going to go a little lower scoring. I think the Steelers defense is going to step up. I'm going to go 20-16 Detroit.
20-16 Detroit. And I'm going to be the outlier. I'm going to go.
Wait, what was my number again? I forgot. CTE.
31-24 Detroit. I'll go 28-21 Steelers.
Wow, that's nice.
Steal a win in the Motor City, basically because they're going to be warm after that frostbitten game at Acrisure Monday. They're going to be happy to play indoors.
Yeah, I got one thing. I got to tell you this. So I'm watching Aaron Rodgers walk into that building, watching him on the field. I remember when it was late in Brett Favre's career, and it was cold days. It was the first time he started looking cold. Like he looked cold. Aaron Rodgers didn't have that look to me. You know what I mean? Like but listen, I played football at the University of North Dakota. When it's a 25-mile-an-hour wind, when it's 10 below, it's brutal. But you can feel like there's a feeling like, I remember Brett Favre having that real cold look, which makes you look older, by the way. You look older when you're cold. I thought he looked older.
This is the guy that shovels snow in shorts, by the way. So Jay never.
Now you know why he's so tough.
He never looks cool.
They forget about the North Dakota stint.
I'm saying that. So I was watching Aaron Rodgers now. He thrives of it. He thrives, but I agree. Larry. Warm temperature, going to be so much better after what they went through. But they dominated against Miami, which is great to see. But it's going to be perfect temperature for everybody.
All right, that said, rearrangement of the top 5 in the AFC, NFC. David, you want to start AFC?
I will. I'm going to move Denver up from the 2 to the 1 spot after the Patriots loss. I'm going to move Buffalo up to 2, which is strange because they're still going to be most likely a wild card team and having to win multiple road games to get to the Super Bowl. But just the resilience of Josh Allen, that team that they showed on Sunday, was impressive. New England's 3rd, Houston's still 4th for me, and I still have Pittsburgh over Jacksonville. Even though Jacksonville is a 10-4 division leading team, I still think if you get to the playoffs, I'd rather have Now, Trevor Lawrence played outstanding
for the last couple of weeks.
What, 5 touchdowns passing and a rushing touchdown? But I would still, come playoff time, rather have Aaron Rodgers than Trevor Lawrence guiding my team.
AFC, Jay.
Yeah, I'm going to go. I have New England. I mean, I have Denver up top as well. I bumped back New England. I kept them 2. Put Buffalo 3, and I got Jacksonville 4. I moved them up. I think his quarterback play has been, everybody's been all over him. And in the last couple of weeks, when you got an arm like that, he's one of those young guys. I'm not disagreeing with what Dave's saying about it either. But I am keeping them 4th as you're looking at it right now, and I've got Houston 5th, and right behind that I got the Steelers. I did my 6 and 7, the Steelers and Chargers, but I've got Houston. That's a 16 pick.
Jay just said 6-7.
I did
6,
but you did
7.
do it a roundabout way. You didn't say the number. You said you have Steelers right there. I just put it out there, but I do think Houston's defense. Still, when we talk about, you need whoever the better quarterback is you hope going to win games. I'm looking at whoever's a stellar defenseman who's mean and aggressive, and that's Houston.
Well, I swapped New England for Denver at number 1. New England's still a really good team. The Bills getting their act together. They still give up too many points, but they could score at will, it seems like, with Josh Allen. So it's Denver, New England, Buffalo, Houston, and Jacksonville.
Yeah. It's amazing how it's flipping when I'm looking.
It is when you think week to week. And I mentioned this the other day, and it's worth mentioning again. I heard Joe Starkey, Post-Gazette writer and midday host of the Fan, say, ding dong, the witch is dead. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs out of the playoffs for the first time in 11 seasons. So
He also
scratched them.
Sorry, he also had a good line this week where he said that Valdez-Scantling was the second person to catch a ball from Rodgers with both the Packers and the Steelers. There's one other person. And you guess who it is, Jay? I think Larry heard
I know the
same
answer.
thing.
But the Packers and Steelers.
Yeah.
Somebody who's caught a
pass.
Aaron
Touchdown
Rodgers
pass?
pass.
No, a pass.
Just a pass from Aaron Rodgers as a Packer and as a Steeler. This is a trick question, Jay.
Wow, there's got to be something to it, Dave. Yeah, I don't know. Who's it?
It's Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, yeah, that's brutal, Dave. That's brutal. I don't even like.
I didn't make
that's
it
not
up.
even.
He
that's
did
not
it.
even a good.
He caught his own pass, I believe, twice as the Packers quarterback.
Yeah.
And, of course, a couple of weeks ago in Baltimore, that controversial.
I was a Packer. I understand that. That's okay.
I mean, he gets, statistically, it's
It's true, but it's stupid.
don't add that to
Stupid
the
one.
thing.
We're going with players. No. That's good.
I didn't.
No, but by the way, to these points, injuries. With the injury, the two key those 2 plays, Kansas City was done anyway, right? So, but Mahomes' health, that's different. The Parsons thing, you just ripped the attitude out of their defense. You'll see if you can regroup from that. But you're going to be in that locker room and you're going to walk out on the field and that guy's not there. Their whole attitude changed with him. If they recover from this and make a run, then Matt LaFleur should be looked at as somebody who's really, it should be in the coach of the year category because when you take, like the Steelers got by with TJ Watt down for this, but that's an attitude. They got by in my opinion, against a team that the guys came out and played. They played at a high level and beat them. But the further you go with great quarterbacks and running games, you just lost the attitude. In Green Bay they did. That's why they're not in any of not in our top 5 now. So those injuries are.
We didn't do the NFC yet.
Give me? No, we didn't.
Speak for
No,
yourself, Jay.
NFC and
Sorry, I didn't do that. I jumped the gun.
your Seattle Seahawks
Yeah.
spoiled Phillip Rivers' debut in his comeback, even though he got a touchdown pass, which is kind of fun to watch, and is the oldest quarterback. But how do you line up the NFC?
Despite the game last night, Seattle and LA played last night, I still have the Rams and Seahawks 1-2. I still think they're the top of the class in the NFC. I think either team, whoever wins that division, is going to be a tough out in the playoffs. Third, I have the Bears. I still think that, and they have a big game against the Packers this week. In fact, Packers are favorites at Chicago tomorrow night, which I don't know, the way the Bears ran the ball on them in the first matchup against the Packers, and now you take Micah Parsons out of the equation. That's one person you have to double team. I think the Bears are still a dangerous team. I'm going to move the Eagles up to 4th. And for the first time, I think all year, I have the 49ers 5th. I know you've been banging the drum on the 49ers, and I have the Packers dropping out.
Yeah. Now I'm going to come back after I did jump the gun. Sorry about that, boys. I am going to go back. I have the same thing. Rams in Seattle. Rams 1, Seattle 2. I have 49ers 3. The whole NFC West is better than everybody else. They are, because they play against each other. They got to go twice against each other. Those 3 teams, they play against each other. Just like we see the Steelers have to go against the Ravens twice. So I got Rams, Seattle, 49ers. I put Chicago 4th. First time I have them up there. I do agree. They got a whole mix of everything. Their running game, playing nasty on defense. And I moved Philly up to 5. Just because of who they are. Your point last week, Larry, that they're Super Bowl champions until they're not anymore. They're going to be there. They had a big win, a dominating win that they should have done, but they dominated. And I think that's what we're looking at. I think that NFC West is very difficult.
Did they get their mojo back? I'm going with Seattle #1. Then the Rams. The Bears, they stumbled. I still think they get enough juice, but I'm going to move the Bears to 4th, and I'm going to move the Eagles to 3rd, and then the 49ers 5th.
Oh, very nice, Larry.
So
very similar.
All right, next up, where do we go from here?
Oh,
I know where we go from here.
Sourness.
Before we get to the big man blitz, normally, since the Steelers played Monday night, our feng shui for the week, so on Tuesday's typical offset episode, we've added a new category, bad beats. So we pushed it to this episode for this week. So, David, this is something Dave Ricchini is very passionate about, bad beats. Explain what that means.
Well, bad beat is it's if you have a wager on a game and it looks like that wager is going to win the entire time, and then all of a sudden the carpet's ripped out from under you and you lose the bet, they consider that a bad beat. You've seen it, on ESPN. You've seen it in casinos. They have a bad beat jackpot in a poker room, which I have won before. And that's another story. That's a story.
You're a bad beat winner?
Yes, I was a bad beat winner.
Impressive.
But I was also a loser because the jackpot just got hit the previous week. And instead of winning $100,000, I won $5,000. So I was a winner yet a loser.
So how come you haven't taken us to lunch every once in a while, Dave? Just maybe
we're waiting.
Pizza?
We're waiting for pizza.
Jeez.
He did buy pizza.
Stop jumping the gun. So this week's offset bad beat didn't come from the NFL. It came from last week's Penguins schedule, which Jay lived and breathed 3 straight times, and I'll explain.
Yep.
You go back to last Tuesday against Anaheim, coming to PPG Paints Arena. The over-under was 6.5 for the game. The Penguins were leading 3-2 with 0.1 second left when Anaheim scored to tie it, sending the game to overtime, which then is an automatic extra goal. So 7 total goals. So if you had the under last Tuesday in the Pens Ducks, you are a loser. And that was a bad beat.
Yeah. And I'm going to follow that up because the next 2 games were
Really
bad beats
bad.
as well. That was a really bad one. The next 2, the same thing. On the 13th of December, they played San Jose. If you had the money line or the puck line in favor of, you lost on that one as well with a huge lead.
5-1.
Up 5-1, and it gets away from you there. So, again, it all turned. It could have easily gone the other way, and I bet we wouldn't have had these conversations about it. They hit a post on an empty netter, and then San Jose went right down and scored, and it got away, and they did the same thing. If you had the money line against Utah, Penguins on Utah on Sunday the 14th, you lost again. So, in a fashion where you think you're pretty comfortable going into the third period.
If this happens again, there's going to be a therapy session for Pens fans who
there will be,
because these leads that they're getting and then blowing are hard to take. And then if you add in the bad beat, it makes it even worse. This is a really strange time for college football fans. It's even stranger now with the expanded playoffs again this year. And then, of course, you have the bowl matchups. Who's actually in the playoffs? What are the other bowl matchups? A lot of people are not real happy about a lot of how this is going down. So where do we start with that?
It's Jay and I were talking about this off the show, but just the move to go to the first round playoff games being held at campus sites. And we were talking about, does that team get the revenue from tickets? And it's kind of it's not real clear, but from my research, it shows that they're sharing amongst the teams with the conferences and NCAA, but it's redistributed another way. And then you look at, okay, what are the benefits for the team? So, $4 million each for the 12 teams that make the college playoffs, $4 million for each of the 8 teams that make the quarterfinals, $6 million for each of the 4 teams that make the semifinals, and then $6 million for the 2 teams that make the college championship. And that goes to the conferences, which is then redistributed. So there's a lot of money being out there in the long run is what I'm trying to say, but it's still confusing. But a lot of people were up in arms this week with the first round getting underway, with the Tulane and the James Madison being involved. And, Notre Dame, we talked last week about, sour grapes not playing in a bowl game now. But I'm looking for this week. I would love to see a Tulane or a James Madison upset to kind of shut up those critics. They're big underdogs, have to go on the road and play in the other team's home. I'd love to see an upset there.
It almost needs to happen to quiet everything. If it doesn't happen, if they end up on the wrong side, it'll be the same talk each and every year. But you realize, even if you're in the playoffs in any other sport, hockey, basketball, when you get an 8 seed versus a 1 seed, it's usually going to be, it should be lights out, right? It really should be. Because if you look at number, if you're betting wise, you bet a series, the numbers are massively, whatever, in the favor of the number 1 seed. I think you build all this way, and what you were hoping for is that you would have a great game each and every one. It just hasn't worked that way. But I think unless somebody comes up with some kind of a surprise game, and like you said, I'm hoping for that too. If that happens, then it can keep everybody quiet. But if it doesn't, it's going to be the same talk each and every year.
I think next week I'll ask you guys about expanding the playoffs, which they already are talking about, to your point. Sort of like March Madness, where there are underdogs, the dark horses, and they're fun. But, remember when Warren Buffett offered $1 billion for anyone that could get a perfect bracket?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's impossible to do. So we'll see what happens. Big weekend ahead to get to that point.
I got one question, Larry, for Dave. So the guys that get the bye, they're not getting the gate at home, right? They're not getting a home game, but they're already guaranteed, was it 8 or 10 million? Was it you go to the second round?
$4 million is to make it,
so
and then another $4 million to get to the quarterfinals.
So they're guaranteed $8 million. So, but because they already made that move, so that's how they're getting around. So they give them $4 million up front. Every team gets 4. You don't have a home game, but you're guaranteed $8 million right off the bat.
But if you win, you get the home. Again, it's the revenue sharing there too. I mean, it's if you have corporate sponsors that are on the field, that's added exposure for that, the TV audience. But you still get to win an extra game just to get to the quarterfinals.
Okay, Larry. So what do you got?
My big question here, and we're going to talk a little hockey with Pierre McGuire here in a minute. But before we do, speaking of hockey, one of the greatest hockey movies of all time, outside of, what's that? Slapshot, of course. We know the Hanson. I mean, it's been cool over the years.
It has really been cool, yeah.
The cult following that's got. Mm-hmm. The 30th anniversary of the star of sudden death is seated right here in Jay Caufield.
That's Monday. Coming up Monday, the 22nd. 30th anniversary of the release date.
I can't believe that, because I remember when you guys did that, some of the guys from the charity team played in there, like Phil Spano got his nose in there. But you actually had some lines in the movie.
Did. 5 of the greatest lines you'll ever see. I don't remember them, but they were 5 minutes. No, we still get, when you have lines and you get paid, you continue to get paid. I'm still getting paid today. Every quarter you get a check from Paramount Studios.
Tell Dave.
Why don't you buy
share?
Eh?
Share.
It's so small now that I can't even afford to buy you lunch.
Yeah.
It's small. It still comes. I have bought you lunch, though, Dave. Yeah, I've got you. But it's true. It's kind of an amazing thing and how that happened and what went with that. And I think one of the things that hurt the movie as far as being a good sports movie was that the lockout occurred. So they didn't have true hockey. They were hoping to film, if I recall, the Blackhawks playing the Penguins. And the game was set on the schedule, and they were going to get live footage from that. And by not being able to have that, the hockey footage isn't.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was lockout.
Then you had guys like Phil.
So I just retired. I retired because when the lockout came up, Leisha and I just said, well, I'm retired. So I retired from hockey. The movie was going to be played out anyway because Howard Baldwin was a part of it, the owner of the Penguins. And so, but that hurt it because you couldn't, the footage of hockey wasn't good. Well, Phil Spano,
we called him Pylon because he looked like he was just standing there.
Phil.
He's an old friend.
He's a great friend of ours. Yeah, we know Phil a long time. But that's one thing that hurt as far as being a sports movie, I believe.
That's pretty cool to be in the movies. And Jean-Claude Van Damme, and my brother Pat was his driver. He's got some great stories about that whole sudden death thing. I don't know. There's something to me. I've always loved the movies. To be a part of that was very cool. And to listen, Dave, you'll appreciate this. When we had Dan Marino on a special edition, obviously Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, but he was in a number of other Bad Boys 2, Little Nicky, one or two others. And to hear the two actors talking, it was like Pacino and De Niro sharing movies.
But it was easy for Dan because he was playing himself. Jay had to play somebody else.
Well, the running joke with Dan is,
true, Dave.
we told Dan, you couldn't even play yourself very well. Of course, he didn't.
He was awesome. He was great to talk about, too. He was really wonderful to hear him talk about his experience with it. And he even, I think he even said the same thing, Dave. He said, well, I was playing myself. It wasn't too bad. I thought that was a great part. And it was really unique because truly, like, there was a lady named Nancy Mosser. She's a talent agent in
She's still doing her thing. She's a casting agent here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, she's wonderful. She's the one who reached out to me to try and do this. And I no kid, I got a call, and Lisa answered the call, and I said, I wasn't interested in being any part of it. I just retired. I didn't want to be around the hockey stuff. And college said no, and I remember Lisa going, why didn't you do it? I go, I just didn't feel like it. She called back again. And then I said, okay, I'll meet. We'll meet. So I took my girls downtown. Alicia and I, we met her at the Westin. And she showed me the lines, what I'd have to say. And I do remember, and Dan said the same thing. And I looked at the lines, I'm like, no way. What I said, no way. If I said that,
you get crushed by your guys.
Kevin Stevens, Mario, all the guys I'm around would crush me. That's right.
Did you have a premiere?
There was a premiere.
Did you go?
So I went to it. Okay, went to it at it was at the showcase off McKnight Road, right by the Giant Eagle up there in the North Hills, McAllis. So we went to it and we walked in. I go, geez, the kid had the lights and everything, had the big lights, spotlights. So Alicia and I went in and go, we're sitting in the back. And when the scene came up on the thing, I remember just sliding down my seat, like, let's stay for the end. And everybody turns and looks at it. But it's I do have one part to type. When there's bad words in a movie, the movie industry is unbelievable because they literally called me and said, hey, we got a flight for you. You got to fly into New York City. We're doing dubbing. I'm going over top of the lines that we had. So the 5 lines, they fly me in, fly first class, have a limo pick me up, go to the city, stay there that night, and then do my dubbing in the morning. And I go in there, and I'm passing all these other actors that are in other movies. And then I go in, and if you say a bad word, you replace it. That's what I did. So I did that, then flew home. It's truly unbelievable how they monitor everything. Flew back, then I did see the premiere. And as soon as my lines were over, I couldn't get out of there fast.
That's enough.
I go, Lisa, we went and said, let's go have a couple beers somewhere. And then we chuckled about it. But it was fun. It truly, Van Damme, I met him. He was great with me. All the guys were great. I got to work with them. Learned about the business, how tedious the business is. Like for 5 lines, I was there for 3 weeks. So Nancy Mosser was unbelievable to even have me be a part of it. And I changed the line. She allowed me to do that, to at least be closer to what players might say.
The 30th anniversary of Sudden Death, starring Jay Caufield.
He has an IMDb page, which you can check out. Still active, and it says, born on, I'm not going to give away the date, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He is an actor known for sudden death. So that is how you know.
And by the last part, my youngest daughter, Madison, was born under the Screen Actors Guild because I was under insurance. I just retired. They put me on that insurance. So Screen Actors Guild insurance and I'm also a member of SAG, Larry. I can vote on.
Yeah, big man. I'm part of SAG too, but that's 2 different ways. All right. Before we go, we got to get to the big man blitz.
Yeah, I'm going to go off a little bit, just not in the NFL or anything or other sports. I'm going to go to the Heisman Trophy presentation. And I'm going to go to, when you look at it and we watch the games, Fernando Mendoza and his story and how he handled it in his interviews and how brutally honest or how he comes across and about the Indiana team and his family. But he's the winner. And, when you look at it, it doesn't always have to be about numbers. It's the timing of what his wins were. So he's the deserving winner, right? He wins it. My problem was with who ended up the runner-up, right? So Diego, right?
Yep.
Okay.
From Vanderbilt.
From Vanderbilt. The attitude through the whole thing that I saw, they kept showing these different sites was brutal, right? So I think, and the part that I have a problem with is just that alone. You're in this world, you understand, but everybody knows when you go there, you're probably not going to be the winner. They knew the guy was going to be the winner. And he badmouthed the committee, badmouthed everybody, had an attitude, walking in with his brothers, all the stuff that goes with that. Then my real problem is he did it, then the next day he apologized. Because his agent probably said to him, what are you doing? Because you're literally hurting your own NFL career. Now, if I'm a GM and I'm looking at it, unless he's Dan Marino throwing the ball, they'll forgive that maybe. I'm not sure how he's going to pan out in his pro career, but his apology is more about, and this is my blitz. His apology is just only because somebody told him, you effed up. You made you did something wrong, and now you need to apologize. And everybody in the world knows it didn't even make sense. So that, I think the attitude of the college athlete, coming out, making money when you're there, and you come out and you think you're something different, and then you apologize for what you did only because somebody told you you're affecting your NFL career. And that's my big man blitz.
And it's surprising. He's the guy that transferred from New Mexico State, so he wasn't a highly sought-after recruit coming out of high school. Goes to Vanderbilt, 2 really good seasons. I mean, he's a Heisman finalist. And then, yeah, to your point, like, going to the after party and, somebody from one of his friends has an F Indiana sign, and he's like referencing it and stuff. And yeah, you talk about the NFL draft, like one of the big things is character and character.
Got the gold
issues.
chains and
Not a good look. But on the flip side, Fernando Mendoza, coming off his interview after the Big Ten, I thought his speech was really good.
Yeah,
I'm really curious to see where he lands in the NFL, and if it's the New York Jets and playing in that market, how he's going to hold up to that media pressure. But it seems like
I hope another guy doesn't roll through there again. It just seems like a beat. Yeah, I know, but I agree. I can't wait to see it, and it's a shame when you have something like that. Listen, truly, I believe if you're in an awards, the running back from Notre Dame was nothing but, professional.
Right.
It goes a long way.
Have a little class.
Yeah.
And it wasn't close. It was a landslide.
Yeah. It wasn't, you knew going in that this was going to be just that way. And the way it came, they win the Big Ten, they beat the games they won down the stretch. That's it. But the act is old, and it's tiresome, and the apologies is worse.
By the way, the big man blitz are genuine. They are not acting just because he's the star of sudden.
Because maybe if they do a movie about him eventually, Jay can be the actor.
You can call it Big Man Blitz. What do you think? We'll work on a script.
Very, very much.
Dave Ricchini, thank you. All right, big man, let's check in with the great Pierre McGuire. Good to see you again this week. So much to talk about. Thank you.
Great to visit with you and Jay, Larry. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Can I just start as a fan, just a fan of the game? The Penguins' inability to close out games, and obviously when they gave up 4 goals in the third period the other night and then lost again in overtime, and this has been, that's probably the biggest lead they've given up, right, Jay? And
well, I don't think, Pierre, I think the numbers that we had saw, they have not given up a 4-goal lead and lost, and 4-goal lead in the third period and lost the game. The last time that happened was March 10th, 1976.
I think I was there.
I was getting ready for the Olympics in Montreal. I was a 15-year-old kid.
Pierre, like as Larry's alluding to, in the whole city of Pittsburgh, and it's not just once. That might have been the worst week of hockey for a Pens fan and the Penguins in general. And the mode, the locker room, what it would be like. I still look at it like, you had a lead, it gets away from you, you hit a post. It all started really when the missed empty net. If they make the empty net and makes it 6-3, I will guarantee you, Pierre, that's never coming up again. But the way it played itself out was unbelievable from that point. Then there's just maybe one missed assignment, something here or there in that game that made him go on the wrong side of it.
So this is a really good exercise for coaches. You sit down at the end of it, you maintain your composure because there's nothing you can do. It's kind of like spilt milk. You can't get it back in the glass. So you got to look at, did I have the right guys on the ice? Did we win enough faceoffs down the stretch? Did we pinch too much? Is there a flaw in our neutral zone coverage? Is there a flaw in our defensive zone coverage? Is our goalie over aggressive? Did we take bad penalties? So you got to easy for me to say, compartmentalize all the different things that went on. And there's a lot that to digest, a ton. And I think the number one thing to digest is they're fundamentally flawed right now in the neutral zone when they're defending a lead. And Jay, I can say this to you, and you can speak to our audience. When we were defending a lead in 91 and 92, we were playing a 1-4 delay, and it was almost impossible to get through the neutral zone against the Pittsburgh Penguins. You would agree?
Yep.
Well, now it's not that impossible to get through the Pittsburgh Penguins right now in the neutral zone. They're going to have to come up with a better scheme through the neutral zone.
Yeah, I think they've got guys in between, right, Pierre? They're in between the thought process. It's like I think they can lean on a 1-1-3 and then hope that middle guy jumps up and reads it right. But if you're in between it all, you're now going to get caught that it was too easy getting through. Then it becomes easy getting through the neutral zone, to your point.
Yeah, no, and the biggest thing, and Larry, you'll appreciate this as a goalie, it's easier to play a contained game down low than it is to defend off the rush. Because off the rush, there's so many different options. But if it's a contained game off the cycle as a goalie, you're just tracking the puck. You don't have to worry about anything else. But off the rush, you're worried about the shooter. You're working about the potential to pass to the middle. You're worried about the potentials of the weak side. Like there's a lot of different things you got to process. I think you know that. So I think it all starts in the neutral zone for Pittsburgh, and they're going to have to clean that up. To Jay's point, they're definitely all not on the same page.
So, Pierre, that's the game against Anaheim. Then you roll to San Jose, which you think it can never happen. I was even talking about it between periods and going, and even Dan Potash asked me a question, well, what do we need to do that this doesn't happen? I go, there's no way that can happen again. At 3-0 going into the third period, right? No way. You would think, no way. And Murashov is feeling good, feeling the game. And then you get inside your own defensive zone, a little flip. Wingers are on the opposite sides, and they have the high ice offense, right? So a little bit of a, 1-2-3 up top. And you still have the same responsibilities, though. Like if your point man is there, you've got him. And if he's cheating in, which was Nate Schmidt, that's still your guy. I mean, that's the kind of breakdown. That's one. I'm picking on one, but that gave them 3-1 and gave them life. And that's the breakdown. And you have the young guys out there, and it was a misstep. But that misstep in the NHL leads to goals, and that's what took place to start the San Jose comeback.
Ever since 2005, when the red line came out and you were allowed to make the 2-line pass to extend the zones and create more speed through the neutral zone, and then they had zero tolerance and obstruction, no hooking, no holding, no tackling, teams can come from behind, whether they're down 2 goals, 3 goals, 4 goals. We saw it. And so you've got to have a scheme. You got to have a scheme in the neutral zone. You got to have a scheme in your own zone. And I think, as you said, Jay, there are obviously a lot of guys that are in between right now, and that's a bit of a problem. And that's why they need some remedial work. The problem in this year of the NHL with the shortened schedule and the tight game turnarounds, there's not a lot of practice time. And when you got a young team, you don't have a lot of practice time, it's a problem.
Yeah, I think this has been a pattern that we've seen where they've given up leads, and that's been the one, kind of nemesis that they've had. So clearly they also have to work on their overtime game and the schemes for that. And I don't think they've won a shootout, have they?
Well, they have 9 overtime losses.
But have they won a shootout?
No, they have not won a shootout. I forget the numbers on that one. It's the
No shootout wins.
So
No shootout wins.
there is some work to be done. It must be really frustrating. Sidney Crosby, way too classy, I'm sure, to call it out publicly, but something's got to change.
Well, I'm going to say, can I say one thing, Larry? Because I love how you just presented that. So I'll say it. I'll be the evildoer. What happened on Sunday against Utah can never happen again. And that's not a knock on the coach. That's not a knock on the staff. That's not a knock on Ben Kindle. But you can't play an 18-year-old person in that situation, especially after what happened on Saturday. You can't do that when Sidney Crosby's going to play angry because of the way the game ended on Saturday. You can't have him sitting on the bench on Sunday. I will never forget this conversation with the late Ray Sherrill. There was a game that went to a shootout when Crosby was very young in his career in Pittsburgh. He never got a chance to shoot. So Ray called me up and he says, what do you think the best way to approach a shootout is? He wasn't trying to usurp the power of the coach. He was just searching out for information. I said, I would identify my top 3 shooters, and I'd make sure that 2 of my top 3 always went 1-2. Because if you don't, you may not get to 3. And so if you go check what happened with the Penguins after that phone call, and I don't know the exact date, they always had Crosby either 1 or 2. And I'm just telling you, you gotta have a plan for all this stuff. And I'm not trying to be, like I said, the evildoer. And this is not a knock on Ben Kindle. He was put in a tough spot. He can't start the overtime on Sunday. Cannot. And they won't make that mistake again.
You know, and I believe, Pierre, it happened Saturday first, then rolled into Sunday, right? They did the same thing Saturday and rolled it into Sunday. I would venture to say, and I will bet this. And you know Mario, right, Pierre? I would think if Mario's on the ice and then they send somebody else to take Mario off the ice, there's a real good chance he's going to point for that guy to go right back to the bench and stay out on the ice, right?
Yeah.
Right. But I just believe that's a fine line between that. And you made the point last week, Pierre. Larry and I remember this was about you're struggling with the shootouts. And you have your top guys, and there's a fine line. You don't want to alienate the superstar, right? You don't want to all of a sudden go, we're going young. We're going to go young and not have Malkin, Letang, Crosby, whoever else, Rust, not going to be out there. I'm going to go all young. And that can be the beginning of dissension inside a locker room. And I think what you just mentioned about the beginning of overtime, that can have the same effect.
There's no question. All you need to do, and again, it's not his fault. He's a passionate person. Look at the reaction of Erik Karlsson on tape after the deciding goal is scored on Sunday. I've known Erik a long time, going back to when he was probably 15 or 16. And that's about as demonstrative as I've ever seen him at the end of an overtime game in the regular season. He was an angry cowboy. He was angry.
All right, that said, what do you think about the goalie swap with Jarry and Edmonton?
You're going to probably think this is crazy. Stuart Skinner needed a new lease on life, and this is a perfect thing to happen to Stuart Skinner, plus the fact that it's a dress rehearsal for him because he doesn't have a contract past this year. So he's going to probably come in here and shut the door and I think play extremely well. To a guy that's been to 2 straight Stanley Cup final, that says a lot to me about his intestinal fortitude and his mental strength. Look, was he great in those finals? No, but tell you what, he still helped get his team there. I watched him battle a lot of good goalies, including Jake Ottinger down in Dallas. So I have a lot of respect for Stuart Skinner. I think he's a mentally tough and a physically tough kid, which is great. The thing to me that really matters, though, is Brett Kulak. I'm just telling you, it changes the slotting on their defense. He's a guy that's been in the Stanley Cup final 3 times. People forget, twice in Edmonton, but they forget about the one time in Montreal when they lost to Tampa not too long ago. So this guy's got major league experience. He's over 30 years of age. He's probably going to slot in really well, whether it's with St. Ivany or Connor Clifton. I like the addition to him. It bumps Graves down deeper in the lineup. I like the trade. Not a knock on Tristan Jarry. I have a hard time, Larry, thinking that Tristan Jarry is actually going to go to Edmonton and be the difference between them getting in the final or not getting in the final. He's never won a playoff series as an NHL goalie, ever.
Good point. Yeah. Great point, actually. And I think it was a good move. Just, from a fan base, sometimes a change of scenery can help both ways.
Pierre, I think on top of everything you mentioned, I agree on the Kulak side, and you even picked up a draft pick, which is wild. If you went back to January, which is not that easy, the play wasn't great at the time, but anybody could have had him for nothing, right? So now you make this deal, you bring back Skinner, you get Kulak, and you get a draft pick. All those things plus $2.5 million different on the number. But I'm with you about. I feel the one thing, I felt it would have been hard to come back, and I'm sure they tried. I think it would have been hard to come back with both goalies that were here last year to start training camp the same way. And we know they were trying to do something. Tristan Jarry did everybody a favor by how good he played to start the year to be able to make this even happen right now. I mean, but it was, you know what I mean? You don't want to come back to the same locker room when it's been defeated years in a row, and then you look and you come in the room, and it's the same goaltenders, which has been a problem all along, and I think that would have been difficult for the lineup.
100%. And again, I'm a Penguin. I'm proud to say that. They've been in the playoffs in 3 years, Jay.
Yep.
Like, let's be real here. And so you can't keep coming back with the same guys because the recipe hasn't worked. They replaced the coaching staff. I think this coaching staff is starting to do some good things, which is really encouraging. We've got a tremendous program going on in Wilkes-Barre right now, which is really good. And now I think they brought in a guy with serious street cred in Stuart Skinner. He needed to get out of Edmonton. This is the best break this guy's ever had, and it's the ultimate dress rehearsal for a guy that's been the 2 final. Now he gets a chance to help get a team into the playoffs. I think that's tremendous for him because his contract time's up at the end of this year.
Yep.
So it sounds like both of you concur it was a good move for the Penguins to
I think Kyle Dubas did a great job. Pierre saying the same thing. Yeah, I feel that way. I'm going to go back to one thing real quick, Pierre. Accountability. I talked about it the other night a little bit, not from, there's voices in the locker room. Who's loud? Who's going to be the boisterous guy? And we had a different set of guys that were that way. But one thing, everybody was held accountable. Like, it didn't always have to be a coaching staff that came down. Everybody looked at each other. I wouldn't want to look at Sidney Crosby if I didn't do my job. I know I wouldn't want to look at. I know I didn't want to look at Mario if I didn't try and do whatever my role was on that given day. That has to be something that comes out of this locker room and all these things that have gone on in this past last week. It has to be like just in between your staff or in between the players. There's got to be just accountability in the locker room when you look across at somebody that you're doing what you're supposed to do so you come away with a win.
Everybody's got to sing from the same songbook. I'll look at what Mike Sullivan did last night in New York. Huge game for them. Gigantic game for them last night in New York against Anaheim. And they lose the game. And they lose, and a big reason why I think they lose is because he sits out Mika Zibanejad. Because Mika Zibanejad was late for a team meeting. It's the organizational standard you're talking about, Jay. In 1992, Jay was there. I ran all the practices. And Jay, you know how intense our practices were. They were really intense. Whether you were a star player or you were at the bottom of the roster, everybody knew. It was 45 minutes to an hour, but you were going to work. Everybody knew they were going to work.
Yeah.
And we did. We had no problems. Our standards were really high, and that's a big reason why we won. Our best players competed just as hard as the lower guys in the lineup, and I thought that was a fantastic environment to be around.
And also, everybody put their own, Pierre, when you gave us that amount of time, like Rick Tucker, for example, or Artie, Kevin Stevens, Mario did, everybody did their own little piece, but if they wanted to do extra work, everybody stayed on the ice to do and help each other out to work on certain parts of the game. It leads from what you just talked about. That 45-minute plus, then if you need something to work on, our coaches were all there to help guys work on their shot, work around the wall, whatever it was. That's where you make up the time. And you can tell how driven guys were, right, Pierre? That's what it was all about.
Jaromir Jagr, Jay Caufield, Larry Murphy. Larry Murphy and Joey Mullen would go out 35 minutes before practice and have me pass them thousands of pucks over the course of a season because they wanted to work on different parts of their game. Jaromir at the end of practice would, and Jay, you were one of the guys that was out there. He'd stay out there for an extra hour or so after practice. There were times we had to kick him off the ice. Jay Caufield was the same. I told a story one time about the off day in Detroit. You were going to have a tough game the next day and you wanted to work on your boxing. So we went to Joe Louis Arena in the dark and we fought each other.
Pierre, well, that's just so true. Pierre, Scotty Bowman, I think to your point, Scotty Bowman was getting sour about it because we'd be out there early and he was like, you're ruining the ice. Remember like, the guys were getting out there early to work on stuff and then you come out and the ice is getting chewed up already and Scotty was a little sour about that. Hey, Pierre, I remember that. So
he would be that. Larry, I was his roommate. He says, I loved everything about practice, but why are you chewing the damn ice up before practice?
That's so true.
That's so true. That's classic. That would also explain, Pierre, the one-team media workouts that we have to do before the podcast. And now I know the genesis of all of that. Well, before we lose you this week, want to talk about this stretch over the holidays, and then before you know it, there'll be that Olympic break. So the way they've scheduled the games and the number of games, to your point, it's been a little atypical. So who's making a run here in the next few weeks?
Watch out for the Florida Panthers. They're starting to get healthy. They've won 4 of their last 5. they're really dangerous right now. Watch out for the Minnesota Wild, who made this massive trade with Vancouver. Quinn Hughes and Brock Faber are going to be one of the best defensive tandems in the league, Larry. Their power play is going to go to another level. Minnesota is going to be really dangerous. Another team in the East that I think to watch out for, believe it or not, and I know it's a huge rivalry with the Penguins, the Philadelphia Flyers. You know, I say this, and Jay's a friend, is Rick Tockett's done one heck of a job there. They're not winning all the time, but what they're doing is they're putting points in the bank, and those young players are starting to believe, and they're getting better because of the work that Rick does with them. Those are just a couple. I'm a little worried about where they are with Columbus right now. I'm a little worried about where they are with the Devils right now. I think they're in a bit of trouble. Tampa Bay, because of the injuries, it's starting to come back to earth a little bit for them. And for Toronto, they better get it straightened out, 'cause if they don't, they're gonna have a very tough second part of the year.
And I agree, and Pierre, and with the schedule being jammed in, is only going to make it more difficult. Pierre, I totally agree with that, and all your thoughts and points, we appreciate it.
Yeah, Pierre, we look forward to our conversations every week, and so much changes in a single week. So we'll look forward to talking to you next week.
I love being on with you guys. You have no idea how much passion I have for it. Jay gets me jacked up every day. Whenever I get his text, I'm ready to go because I don't want him to beat me up again.
I just remember I'll always be grateful, Pierre, to Jay. We were playing one of those charity games, sometimes with Jack Lambert, the great Steelers Hall of Fame linebacker, that's a whole nother story we'll talk about someday. But I was on TV as the weatherman at the time, so the CBS affiliate in Pittsburgh, KDK, and, you know, I was the least of my brothers on ice. I acknowledge that, but skating a wing position, and one guy took a blindside run on me and knocked me over, and all I saw was the big man coming right by my head, and we'll leave it there. But he was my protector.
Larry, before you go, I got to finish this one on Jay because he's just too kind of a person. This is a good story about Jay. So Mario's fantasy camp this year is March the 22nd to the 26th, and it's must watch because you got all these great Hall of Famers that come back and play and participate, and all the campers are amazing. My first time there was 4 years ago, and Jay happened to be on my team. And there was a guy in the other team that was kind of running around. It's supposed to be no check, but he was kind of bumping guys. So Jay leaves the bench. He leaves our bench. I'm the coach. I'm going, where the heck's he going? And he goes to the bench and he wants to straighten the guy up. And I'm like, geez, you're going to get I wasn't worried about that. I was worried about getting a penalty for too many penalties.
That's right. That's right.
Pierre, I've always told people Jay is top professional, one of the kindest people you'll ever meet until you put your stick under his chin.
Yeah.
Hey, Pierre.
There's a flip. He definitely can flip the switch. I know that.
Pierre, who would want to take out our local weatherman, too, by the way? Who would do that?
No weatherman.
That's why, Pierre, I've been in the Weather Witness Protection Program for a long time.
Larry, that's awesome.
All right, the great
Thank
Pierre McGuire, thank you. And
Thank you, boys.
we'll catch you next week.
See you later.
You got it.
Jay, I got to tell you, I always enjoy Pierre McGuire, and people may forget that he has such a great and rich history with the Penguins organization, with you, all your contemporaries that played on those great teams.
Yeah, it started with Scotty Bowman. He came in, prior to, part of us, part of the group, and just rode that career for all these years. He's somebody that truly, Larry, loves what he does, and he puts so much time in it. He's outstanding.
If you look up passion in hockey, Pierre McGuire's face will emerge. We want to thank you, and we want to thank One Team Media, Brian Hess, who's the mastermind, Mark Coddington producing this episode, and also from Odyssey Pittsburgh, Michael Spacciapoli.
Also, Dave Rourke, the Rourke Automotive Group. Thanks so much for being a part of it. With the Rourke Advantage, lifetime state inspections, lifetime oil change, engine warranty. Dave, great part of it. And also Tom Grush with Henderson Brothers. Dave, a little bit more with that, Larry?
Yeah, Henderson Brothers, the power of partnership. Highly advise if you have insurance needs of any sort, whether it's for your home, your business, it's hendersonbrothers.com. We also want to thank our partner, Dave Ricchini, and his input, and enjoy your week and weekend ahead. This is Offset with Larry and the Big Man, and that's a wrap.